Hello, and welcome to the 18th video in my Punishing Graven lore series. You know exactly what time it is. Chapter 13, Fake Ascension Part 2. Previously in Part 1, Huashu hacked into Babylonia's Gestalt AI, threatening to drop the station from orbit, and thanks to Grey Raven, Babylonia was saved. In the background, Hassan and Nicola wage an information war, with Murray set up to be a dark horse, dealing in the shadows with unknown outside sources. After defeating Huashu, Grey Raven acquired coordinates to City 075, revealing the existence of the Red Tide, a condensed form of living virus composed of organic matter, Huashu's likely status as a double agent, and the location of the Ascendant's base. Now we tie together these multiple threads of fate, linked together by the sealed memories of Lucia's past. Now without further delay, let's dive into the deep end.
人間の卑劣さは魂に刻まれている。誰を裏切っても誰を犠牲にしても構わない。極限の感情と真の欲望が偽善の仮面を粉砕する。あの時の出来事を再現しなければ本当の意味で理解はできない。人間はいかに愚かな生き物なのか。
Picking up where we left off, Bridget picks us up in a transport vehicle, getting us out of the tide's reach. We go over the support force's survey information and learn there's a massive underground cavern beneath the city. Liv says it was originally built as a military shelter and that she can't get any detailed information due to the signal jamming, so we head out to search for an entrance, hoping to learn a bit more. On our search, we come across tide residue in an area we previously thought had gone unaffected. We decide to follow the trail as it's the only lead we have, and it leads us to a shopping mall on the south side of the city. Realizing this must be one of the entrance points underground, we force our way through the barricade. Liv detects that the virus concentration is even lower than on the surface, meaning not only are the Ascendants aware of our presence, but openly invite it. She also mentions an energy reaction similar to the hetero creatures, but far stronger, coming from deep beneath the surface. And after making our last-minute checks, we enter the darkness below. Luna watches Grey Raven as they explore the city, knowing they would soon discover the underground facility. Everyone is present, except for Lamia, and Luna has Roland prepare a warm welcome, and tells Alpha to take Huashu for safekeeping, as the others begin to make their own moves. After a few minutes of walking, we enter a room full of remains, both corrupted and constructs. Those that are still active begin attacking, and we fight our way to another large section of a production facility for building corrupted. We stop to look around, and Lucia freezes for a moment, thinking she heard a corrupted say her name. Lee assumes it could be related to the data fragments, and begins playback to find useful information. The video shows Roland speaking to a construct, trying to convince him to join the Ascension network. He gives that construct the same task, to reach the specified coordinates alive, and he does. Luna charges him with the Crimson virus, and the construct celebrates, but soon his corruption level rises exponentially, reaching critical levels before he becomes just another mindless corrupted. Even if you pass the Ascension Network's tests, it is Luna's decision if you become an Ascendant or not. She walks over to a screen showing a girl with black hair in the middle of a ruined city, and tells Roland that it's time to bring Lucia back home. The video ends and we realize all the corrupted around us are those who failed to pass the test and become Ascendants. We break down the Ascension process into 3 steps: initial infection, qualification testing done by the Ascendants, and the final ascension done by an agent. Thinking back to both Chu and Shom, we assume there has to be more than one agent, since not all Ascendants are under Luna. We have Liv send Babylonia all the data we collected and call for backup. A little further ahead, we rest on a nearby platform, checking supplies and trying to establish a communications link with Babylonia, but the signal jamming is getting in the way. We try the backup frequency and manage to get through to Murray, briefing him on the situation at hand. He tries to lecture us about rushing in without a plan, but this opportunity was too rare to pass up, despite the risk of confrontation. Lee brings up a graviton detector Murray got him as a gift, and says he will use it to map out our path and the cavern, so Murray can track our location and get an image of the area. And having finished the field preparations and gotten a method of communication, we get back to exploring. With Lee's mapping, we get a general idea of the facility's layout. It is composed of several individual sectors surrounding a central core area. We are in the industrial sector, and assume that Huashu is being held in the core area. We look for a way down and spot platforms leading to a bridge. Unfortunately, all of the controls are locked, and Murray connects to unlock a new Spear of FOS function that will allow us to review access logs. This can only be unlocked by those with high-level clearance, and we wonder how Murray got the credentials to do it, but he cuts us off, saying now isn't the time to worry about proper protocols. Upon activation, we see projections of Roland and Gabriel as they access the consoles, allowing us to follow their tracks and navigate through the security blocks. We find that Roland is actually following Gabriel, and the two begin to fight. After a quick skirmish, they each back off, and Roland puts his silver tongue to use. Gabriel is currently operating in Luna's blind spot, and he believes it's an Ascendant's job to correct their agent if they believe they stray too far from the network's will. At this point, Gabriel reveals that he knows Roland is also working outside Luna's orders, and having been caught, shows Gabriel a hard drive that hints to what Luna is truly after, and sensing that Roland shares his thoughts on Luna, he offers to show him what he's been working on. The two arrive at the heterocore, watching as the tide reshapes itself, searching for its perfect form. Gabriel has also noticed Luna's changing attitude, and he wants to use this newest secret project of his to rekindle her desire to complete the network's will. Roland asks if Alpha knows, and she doesn't, as Gabriel thinks her perspective on the network is too shallow. Roland notes Gabriel's motivation to the network and offers to take care of Alpha so he can finish his plan in peace. The projection ends and we discuss what we saw, assuming this must have taken place around the time the heterocore fell to Earth. Lee mentions that if the rate of the hetero creature's evolution isn't due to Gabriel, but rather their own will, they could end up becoming a far worse enemy than just the corrupted, and might even have the chance to evolve to the level of humans. Liv brings up Roland and Gabriel acting behind Luna's back, and wonders if they plan to betray her. And the thought of betrayal gives Lucia a heavy sense of familiarity and rage, but she can't pinpoint why that is. Some time ago, Gabriel brings up his concerns to Luna directly. He worries about her attitude when it comes to matters concerning Grey Raven. Case in point, they are here in their very backyard, and annihilating them once and for all would be all too easy, yet Luna takes no action. She says it's because she wants to show Lucia something. She wants Lucia to witness the truth of humanity's treachery, and drive her over to the Ascendant. Gabriel finds it highly unlikely that Commandant would ever betray her, and continues questioning her choices when her patience finally begins running out. Switching to Alpha, she reaches Huashu and says that Luna never once had to prove her strength, but after its arrival, she began acting rash, taking unnecessary risks, and Alpha believes it's because of the information Huashu is feeding her. The Ascendants are stronger than any of the human factions, but they aren't stronger than all of them. The provocations Huashu led Luna to do will only unite humanity, a trouble the Ascendants certainly don't need. She reveals that they know Huashu has been leaking information, but Alpha at least doesn't seem to mind, as she intends to settle things with Lucia permanently. Finally, Grey Raven breaches the remaining blockades, arriving at a bridge leading to the core area, and as expected, blocking our path is the familiar face of Roland. Everyone shifts into fighting formation, and Lucia closes the gap, slashing at him. Combined with range attacks from Lee and Liv, we manage to push him back. Roland casually retreats back to the main entrance of the core area, taunting us as he does so. He asks Lucia if she finally remembered her past, and threatens to reveal what Babylonia did to her, trying to get into our heads. He goes on, saying that to humans, constructs are no more than disposable tools, and voices a thought no one wanted to think about. If it comes down to it, could Lucia plunge her sword into Luna for the sake of humanity? The question leaves Lucia silent, and Roland tries asking again, but is cut off as the entire cavern is shaken by the shockwave of an explosion, accompanied by a blinding white light coming from the core area. Very briefly, Roland's expression sinks knowing Gabriel made his move, and he turns back to Grey Raven, bidding us farewell as he activates the console and retracts the bridge. Seeing that the gap is too large to cross with what we have now, we decide to return to the surface and see if Bridget has anything that could help. After Roland escapes, he rushes through the core area until he's stopped by Alpha. She asks why he let Grey Raven go once again, and what his true intentions are. He gives a vague reply, an answer that Alpha takes negatively, telling Roland that he has lost Luna's trust, and that she will deal with him after investigating the explosions. Roland falls into a laughing fit, taunting Alpha that even as Luna's sister, she has no idea what she truly wants. He says his intention has always been the same since the start. Whatever Luna wants is what I want. It just seems that no one, including Luna herself, truly knows what she desires. Hearing this, Alpha changes her priorities, unsheathing her sword before striking at Roland. After Gabriel confronts Luna, he says that she was once an unshakable pillar of strength, but as of late her status is concerning. She asks him how he sees fit to best serve the network, and he shows the newest breed of hetero creatures, confident that this is a sign the virus wants to evolve, and that one day it can become sentient. With the hetero creatures, the virus will spread like never before, and the only possible threat lies with Babylonia, which is why he suggested using Huashu to drop it from the sky. Although this plan failed, he has a contingency hidden underneath the core area. But before they go anywhere, Gabriel makes quite an arrogant request. With a whisper, his creatures swarm Luna, as he asks her to prove that she still holds the absolute power of an agent. What follows is a one-sided massacre as Luna butchers the swarming bugs, and with a wave of her hand, the tides have turned as their allegiance is transferred to the girl, and they begin attacking Gabriel. Finally, he relents, and Luna floats back down, with Gabriel trying to bow to show his remaining loyalty. Luna comments on the bug's disappointing strength, and he reveals there is one left, one he refers to as the ultimate ace. On their way to Gabriel's secret weapon, it becomes apparent that Luna is having trouble controlling the energy within her frame, and that this has actually been an ongoing issue getting worse and worse by the day. She quietly inspects herself, trying to figure out where the issue originates from, as Gabriel stands behind her silently observing. They exit at the bottom level, and Gabriel reveals what he believes is the answer to the network's will. Grey Raven makes it back to the surface and meets with Bridget, explaining their issue with the retracted bridge. She hands over some of the portable rockets she brought along and gives us free reign of the newest shipment of supplies. While speaking to Bridget, she dumps a rescue mission on us since she's so short-staffed at the moment. We are looking for a former member of Team Silkworm who was reassigned due to the dissolution of her team, a construct named Roland. Although reports say her commandant and teammates were consumed by the tide, she believes her commandant is alive and is just too injured to call for aid. Now she has run away to search on her own, and it's our job to bring her back. We wander the city, and after a bit of searching, manage to find Roland. Although she's already been infected, she is managing to hold on due to her Inver device enhancements. Commandant goes to speak with her, attempting to gauge where she's at mentally. She still believes her commandant is out there and waiting for her, so we show her the data collected on the red tide, and struck with grief, she refuses to believe it. She tells us how the two were childhood friends, and how she became a construct to save herself from an illness. She remembers talking to him about her doubts, scared that she would outlive him as constructs have no lifespan. And he says that if she does outlive him, he wants her to continue living, and serving as proof that he once did too. Hearing all of this, Commandant knows the poor girl is fully aware her commandant has died, and it's just her sadness talking. We reassure her that the memories and wishes he had for her still persist, and that he would want her to live on. After this, she cries, and cries and cries, letting out all of her sadness as the rest of the team whispers words of encouragement. And after everyone has calmed down, we get up to leave, with Roland promising to move forward. Some time later, Bridget approaches us again, updating us on Roland's situation. She was placed in another team, but her performance was still lacking, so the higher-ups decided it might be in her best interest to wipe that part of her memory. Initially she agreed, but backed out at the last second, so Bridget gives us her last coordinates and we head out looking for her. We speed over the tide in Bridget's boat and manage to find her standing on a slab in the middle of the waves speaking to a tide projection. She waves at the boat, saying something, but the crashing waves drown out her voice. We try to reach her, but are too late, as she gives us a smile and takes a leap forward. We return to Bridget and deliver the news. She tries to comfort us, but her words do little in that regard. And while we're playing the footage, Bridget tells us the words she said before jumping, we're thank you. Having finished up, we make our way back to the core area, where Lucia seems lost in thought, unable to reconcile that the little sister she remembers has become an agent of the virus. Lee brings up the option that the Luna she knows is gone, and that this is just the virus simulating her actions, but any questions we have will be cleared up soon enough, because for better or worse, today is the day when all is revealed. We walk alongside the bridge when Commandant notices something out of the ordinary, and everyone turns around to see a floating projection of Huashu attempting to guide us further. Huashu leads us to a platform lift, and that takes us down to the bottom of the shaft, where we find Roland and Alpha still locked in combat. They stop fighting, having acknowledged our arrival, and Roland gives Alpha a warning to be careful of Lucia. As he puts it, she will get stronger and stronger, but you are no longer impeccable. She tries to hit him one last time, but Roland retreats into the darkness, leaving her alone with the four of us. We leave the platform and the projection returns to Alpha's side, making it clear it was Alpha's order to guide us here. Before we can ready ourselves, Liv and Lee are forced to the ground as Huashu uses the Spear of FOS to seize control of their frames. Unknown to us, the spear is both a weapon and a flaw, allowing us a deeper connection with the outside world, but also allowing the outside world a deeper connection with us. Lucia loses to her rage and draws her sword, with Alpha responding in kind. The two slam against each other, with fighting styles so similar they begin to blur together. While they fight, Alpha continues to give Huashu orders, having it take over Commandant's mind beacon and placing it within a corrupted. Madness begins to take over, as the chaotic mind of the corrupted begins bleeding into him. He loses control of his body, thoughts of destruction filling his head, and he begins choking himself. The two go back to fighting, with both swords and words, as Alpha says one day humans will betray her again, and that will drive Lucia back to the Ascendant. Lucia admits that if she had not known the current Grey Raven, she might have turned out just like Alpha, but the way she is now, she believes in her comrades, and vows to never end up on the path of Ascension. This infuriates Alpha even more, like looking at someone ignoring the very warning you just gave them, and to make it worse, it's coming from a copy of a copy. Alpha rushes forward, throwing a relentless flurry of slashes when Lee manages to get just enough freedom to fire a few shots. Liv throws a tranquilizer, and in the instant Alpha moves to dodge Lee's bullets, Lucia grabs the vial, injecting and restraining Commandant, while Alpha watches, saying that very kindness would only prolong the suffering. The fight resumes, and in Commandant's head he hears a voice, recognizing it as Huashu. The AI sees this as a good thing, noting his ability to resist corruption, and suggests something outrageous to even the odds. Huashu suggests we link with Alpha, using Lucia who originates from the same source. To do this, Lucia needs the same level of access to her deep mind as Alpha, and to encourage Commandant a bit more, Huashu lets him know any option other than cooperation ends in Grey Raven's destruction. Finally agreeing to the terms, Commandant shocks himself awake with the pain of laying on the glass next to him, and it brings up memories of the past. He remembers the conversation with Hassan from before their departure to the city. He thinks about Lucia's uncertainty about how she would react about learning the truth, and he reflects on how much she has grown over her time at Grey Raven. Back in the fight, Alpha steadily pushes Lucia back and intends to land a lethal strike when Commandant shoots at her and begins granting Lucia access to her deep mind. Alpha, being unaware of our plan, sees this as a desperate Hail Mary until Commandant calls out for Huashu, and the connection begins. Within her mind, Lucia finds the divergence point that sets Alpha on her path, and upon approaching the memory, she sees the other half of the betrayal incident. This Lucia finally makes it to where her Commandant should be, but finds nothing when corrupted begin emerging from the surroundings. Another teammate named Hero should have led them all away, and the silence on the comms has her assuming the worst. Up ahead, she hears a gunshot and rushes to investigate, finding Hero with a gunshot wound to his inver device, just like Shun and Merle. Before she can realize what's happening, a shot from behind pierces her leg. She turns around to shield herself, and there she finds her Commandant. Hero screams out that their Commandant, Revenge, lied, and Hero made a deal that if he set up the rest of the team, his daughter would be set free. We learn that the operation was to subjugate what we now know as an Ascendant, but Revenge wanted to connect with it, causing them to go berserk and massacre the entire attack force, leaving no survivors. Now he intends to kill off his team and escape the blame of causing the entire incident. Lucia tries her hardest to reason with him, even trying to explain his actions by saying his mind has leftover corruption. He says the mission to retake Earth was meaningless from the start, and that the only way forward lies with the Ascendants. He fires at Lucia's inver device, but she blocks it, and in response, he shuts it down using his command and access. He walks up to finish her off, and she cuts off his arm before he can pull the trigger, with him running away before she can retaliate further. She tries to fight her way through the corrupted, but there are simply too many. No matter how many she kills, their numbers don't shrink. Hero tells her to finish him off before he becomes corrupted, and after reluctantly doing so, she rushes to find Shun and Merle, discovering that it's too late, and they too were infected. Standing amidst the corrupted, she wonders how many of them had to go through this, how many of them were turned on and lied to. And with her strength fading, she collapses by a wall, wondering if the humans who would do something so heinous actually deserve protection. Lucia continues past the memory and begins thinking about Luna, and as if the mind space is responding to her, she comes across a projection of Luna. This Luna pleads with her to stay, but Lucia knows if she grabs her hand, she will become a second Alpha. After turning down Luna, the scene shifts, bringing her back to the initial divergence point, and standing on the platform across from her is Alpha. The two charge at each other once more, and their clash brings with it a mindquake, stirring up old memories. Lucia sees Alpha trying to get the word of the incident to Babylonia to exonerate her team, the fruitless effort searching the surface for anyone who might have recalled, and the anger of learning the entire incident was suppressed. Disappointment after disappointment lined her path, slowly snuffing any hope she had left. And after learning they had made another Lucia, she refused to let her go down the same path of hope and despair, and if she can't prevent it with words, she will do so with force. Alpha opens her eyes and walks forward, a trail of flame spreading from her footsteps as the landscape begins to morph. Huashu connected their minds together, but Alpha's fury causes her portion to expand, threatening to consume Lucia's altogether. They continue fighting, the ground turning to lava with every clash as snowflakes fall around them. Lucia swings her sword at a stone slab blocking her path, and upon shattering it, the flaming field changes to Kowloon. Alpha asks Lucia if the world she fights for will allow Luna's existence. Their blades clash again, and Lucia promises not to abandon Luna a second time. The shock of the answer gives Lucia an opening to release a strike with all of her power behind it, as Alpha invites her challenge, causing another massive mindquake from the collision. And as the shattered ice falls, so too does Lucia's consciousness, drifting away into an empty abyss. As she falls, the memories of her peaceful days with Luna float past, coalescing into her form at the bottom of the pit. She asks Lucia if she believes everything she saw was the truth, and pillars of red light shoot from around them, shaking the void.
姉さんは自分が見たものが真実だと思っているの。
Lucia focuses everything she has on the mind beacon above her, striving to drift upward away from the pit. Having finally gotten over her own regrets and accepting her mistakes, she manages to escape the abyss, returning to the Divergence point. There she finds Alpha charging her blade, prepared to send her back down, but Alpha can't extend the fire's reach beyond herself. Lucia prepares to retaliate, saying that someone stuck in the past could never beat someone trying to move forward, and instead of blocking or dodging, Alpha rushes forward, impaling herself on Lucia's sword. She grabs hold and throws them both off the side. If Lucia is content with floating on hopes, Alpha will drown her with the truth. In the deep mind, Lucia confronts Alpha's past regrets, accepting all parts of what makes her, her. And after finding the resolve to move forward despite humanity's shortcomings, she chooses to believe in the comrades who stayed by her side. And having faced all of her past, she leaves her mind, ready to face her future. Lucia opens her eyes to see Lee and Liv locked in battle with Roland, who is hardly putting up a fight, only trying to stall for time. Lucia approaches and he immediately steps back, acknowledging Lucia as the superior one. Alpha does not take kindly to this, and even with the heavy damage from her mind battle, she charges Lucia once again, and is easily pushed back by Grey Raven's combined effort. Roland stops the fight before it can heat up again, encouraging us to deal with the bigger issue happening further in the core area, and even gives us Hwashu's key. Alpha calls Roland out as a traitor, and he takes the pleasure of mentioning he was the one protecting her while she was locked in her mind. He tells the four of us to go ahead, standing in Alpha's way, and she once again asks him what he's after, and without a shred of doubt, his answer remains the exact same. On the outskirts of the city, Strikehawk prepares to head towards the center and search for Hwashu, with Chrome reminding Kamui that their mission is to collect samples of the Red Tide and figure out its source. Right after, Hasen calls and updates their mission objective to finding Grey Raven, stating they lost all contact with the team. Kamui tries his comms and gets nothing, so Chrome decides to meet up with the support force and see what they know. Kamui sits atop a building looking over the city as the Red Tide floods the streets. He is soon attacked by hetero creatures swarming out of the tide and tears them to pieces before receiving a notification of Grey Raven's disappearance. Strikehawk continues to investigate and collect samples, noticing how the samples they collected are actively trying to flow back into the tide. As they finish up, Wanshi hears a faint voice coming from the tide, and Chrome warns him not to listen, but the voices continue, almost putting the entire team into a trance until the sounds of Kamu's fighting in the distance snap them out. Arriving at the aftermath of Kamu's fight, he tells them that all the remaining entrances underground have been sealed, with Wanshi assuming someone might be interfering intentionally. But as things stand, there's nothing they can do, so they split up to help the other squads, while Kamu and Kamui continue their search. Walking past Roland, we enter the core area, and the virus concentration soars. Liv takes the chance to patch up Commandant's wounds and swap out the damaged portions of his suit. We look around, and in the distance see a massive mechanical monster called the polyphage, surrounded by Red Tide, no doubt the source we've been looking for. Liv suggests calling for reinforcements, but that would take far too much time, not to mention the challenge of navigating down here, or having to fight past 2 Ascendants. We agree to try and get closer, but the platforms surrounding it are destroyed, and the jets we brought would leave us too vulnerable in the air. While searching the area for anything that might help, we get a call from Murray. He tells us about a downed transport craft that could get us across, but Lee is skeptical of the entire interaction. He has Liv analyze the background noise from his call, and she's able to pick up the faint sound of hetero creatures, meaning our Murray is an imposter, tricking us from the time we first entered the cavern. Knowing the transport is a trap, we ignore it, waiting for our Murray to call again so we can track down our faker. Not long after that, just like Lee predicted, our Murray calls back asking about the transport ship, and Lee outs him as a fake. Having been exposed, Lamia reveals herself, marking this as her first official interaction with Grey Raven, excluding Commandant himself. Knowing what kind of situation we are in, she decides to offer a deal, requesting Hwashu's key for passage to the polyphage, and not liking those terms, we opt to just hunt her down. While searching for our fish, we stumble across another set of data fragments, playing them to see a group of scavengers follow a rumor that nearby ruins were full of supplies. Night sets in while they look, and they find a building to sleep in, unaware that it belonged to a group of armed bandits. The leader of the scavenger group tries to speak up, and as a result they are all beaten and forced to work for the bandits. The next day, the scavengers are sent out to the commercial district to search for supplies, and are exploited, not receiving a share of any food they find. The same happens in the coming days, when one night they hear the sound of splashing waves behind the building. Most ignore it, but others get curious, wondering what the sounds could be. In the following night, everyone is woken up by the sound of a scavenger fleeing from the bandits, having stolen some of the supplies. As the group runs outside, they hear a splash of waves, and suddenly everything is quiet again. The next day, the scavengers wake up, but far past the time when the bandits would usually come for them, and one of the scavengers says she saw what happened last night. She tells them how the path behind the building was all red, and that the missing people came out to speak with her, but her story is interrupted when another group of scavengers stumble upon the building. The first group catch the second up to speed, telling them about the bandits and the tide behind the building. They all go to investigate the next time it appears, and see the projections of their missing comrades. Soon, news of the red tide reaches everyone in the building, and with it, the virus. As things get more desperate, and more people fall ill, they start to believe in the stories about the tide. And seeing how it brings both despair and hope, the people become enthralled by the mysterious power, seeing it as a source of salvation. A young girl tries to convince those around her that the tide isn't heaven, and that if they just keep praying, God will come save them. But to the sick and starving with no hope, a heaven they can see is far better than one they can't. People slowly start vanishing, until eventually even the girl leaves the abandoned hotel, crying out to her God, begging for aid, only to be met with deafening silence. Her prayer devolves into laughter, then wailing as she collapses to the ground, having run out of strength to continue on. Before her, the waves of the tide surge forward, and the girl surrenders herself, embracing the salvation that has blessed so many before her. After the projection ends, we continue our search, and using the environmental sounds Liv found in earlier communications, we find our mermaid and drag her out. She surrenders immediately without a hint of resistance, saying she isn't built for combat. Lee demands she tell us how to reach the polyphage, and we learn that only an Ascendant can deactivate the barrier and form a path across, meaning Lamia has to come with us. Having been warned of her ability to turn invisible by Strikehawk, we tie her up, ensuring she can't vanish or sneak away. While going over our next steps, we hear the rumbling of battle near the polyphage, and rush to the epicenter to figure out what's happening. We arrive at the aftermath only to find the ground shattered and scorched. Lamia says from the traces of battle she can tell Luna was the one fighting, but she doesn't know what. She tells us she can figure it out if we give her one of the nearby hetero creatures, and we quickly do so, curious about what could have pushed Luna to this extent. Lamia sticks her finger into the creature's head, pulling out an oddly shaped device. She hands it to Lee, who is noticeably confused how she knows we can play back data, but shrugs it off and begins the video. Luna and Gabriel arrive at the polyphage, where he explains its incredible value as a weapon for conquering Earth. She quietly listens to his explanation as his fervor takes over. That is, until he mentions Alpha's name. Luna loses her composure and threatens Gabriel with conjured virus blades. This reaction pushes him even further, as he believes an agent should gladly sacrifice anything for the sake of the network, even a sister. The pressure of Luna's gaze forces Gabriel to his knees, and he hints that hetero creatures are the next step, even replacing the Ascendants altogether. Luna dismisses the claim, and Gabriel calls out his greatest hetero creature. An ash-colored figure descends from atop the polyphage, mimicking Gabriel and bowing to Luna. He explains that this creature serves as the terminal of the polyphage, and controlling it is equal to controlling power comparable to an agent, explaining Gabriel's current bravado around Luna. Hearing this, she decides to test the validity of his claims, and attacks the creature. The two white figures clash mid-air, as the shockwaves destroy the surrounding area, but Luna still maintains the upper hand during the fight, taking the higher position and cratering the creature into the ground. Although she didn't have to use her full strength, the creature's power far exceeded her predictions, and took a considerable amount of effort to defeat. She takes a look at herself, noting the power provided from the network is weakening, when Gabriel informs her her fight is not yet over. The creature rises from the ground, exerting a pressure no less impressive than Luna herself. It condenses a ball of red light in its hand, as Luna also fires a crimson laser. The two beams collide, threatening to collapse the entire cavern, and with great struggle, Luna overcomes the creature. Having been overwhelmed by Luna's strength, it falls back to the ground in defeat, and being weakened even further by her battle, Gabriel takes the opportunity and betrays Luna, trapping her within the polyphage.
しかし
ガブリエル、
あなたは昇格ネットワークを裏切った。
愚か者裏切り者はあなたではなくてガブリエル、あなた。
ルナ様、あなたは最後に代行者の資格を失う。ならば昇格ネットワークのため集合体の養分になっていただく。
The recording ends, everyone staring in shock at what they just witnessed and speeding ahead before things can get worse. Gabriel works on his body modifications, recording the results of his latest tests when Roland arrives having seen the explosion. Roland asks Gabriel why he's so infatuated with the idea of frame retrofits, especially since as Ascendants they are nearly invincible. Gabriel takes the chance to highlight their differences, the main one being Roland was once a human, while Gabriel has always been a machine. He recounts when he was first chosen by the network, and what happened when he arrived at what was supposed to be the end of his life. He witnessed a new him composed of fractals, where he had surpassed the limits humans placed on him, until he was forced back into his harsh reality. Then a blinding white light arrived, bringing his salvation along with it, and that was the start of his journey as an Ascendant. Having said too much already, the two leave to get ready for their next mission, rescuing Luna's sister from Babylonia. Gabriel watches over the tide, scattering corrupted remains to feed the tide's growth. Unsatisfied with the results, he submerges a nearby suitcase that dissolves to reveal the half-wrecked body of a construct we are all too familiar with. Noticing the hetero creatures surrounding his arm, he leaves it in, witnessing explosive growth in their evolution. He replaces the corroded mess with new parts before speaking to himself, hoping that Luna's dedication to the network hasn't changed. Otherwise, he would have to take what he calls drastic measures. We arrive at the rift just before the polyphage, and Lamia steps forward, commanding the virus to crystallize under our feet, forming a path. During her usual attempts at conversation, she admits that she had been hiding to avoid being sacrificed, apparently being aware of Gabriel's plan and that it needed an Ascendant to function. But now that it has taken Luna, all bets are off. Lucia tries to convince everyone to head back to the surface and call for reinforcements, intending to hold off the polyphage by herself. After pointing out the obvious flaw in that plan, we remind her that we, not her, are Grey Raven, and we do things together. Just as we finish up, the rope holding Lamia suddenly bursts, setting her free. Lamia disappears as Lee catches a glimpse of red light coming from Commandant and jumps to get him out of the way, shooting the warp space next to him. Lamia reappears having been hit by the shots, and Lee correctly assumes she was after Huashu's key, which he takes out and gives to Lucia, telling her not to let the Ascendants get a hold of it. The notion that the Ascendants are the ones after Huashu's key makes her laugh, but she leaves before telling us anything else. With her disappearance, the virus bridge begins to collapse and fall apart, and only then do we realize she led us to the polyphage side of the rift. Following along with Lamia, she is still looking for an opportunity to steal Huashu's key, when she is contacted by Murray, who is the person who had her try and steal the key in the first place. The two are working together, and that explains why she was able to get a hold of Murray's appearance and her familiarity with the Spear of FOS, despite it being so new to field use. Murray emphasizes the need for the key and reminds her that if she doesn't get it, he won't hold up his end of their deal. Before the Ascendants attack on Babylonia, Lamia sits on a rooftop lamenting her inability to fight back against Gabriel and the polyphage, when a small yet familiar robot approaches her to make a deal. He promises to protect Lamia and help her survive Gabriel's upcoming rebellion so she can continue on to fulfill her own dream. He wants something in return, an oh-so-precious key. After his deal with Lamia is struck, Murraybot speaks to a Corona representative about acquiring enough weapons to protect someone, most likely Lamia, but the representative wants information on the other agents in return, a condition Murray agrees to before ending the call. We finally come face to face with Gabriel, and Lucia attacks with no hesitation, but is pushed back by the Ash Hetero creature. Lee comments on Gabriel betraying his master, and he admits that once upon a time he viewed Luna as the perfect agent. But now she has been led astray due to the influence of Alpha and Grey Raven. Ever since she began interacting with us, she has grown more sentimental, and this has impeded her duties in progressing the network's will. Gabriel admits he intended to lure both Alpha and Luna, but Alpha never showed. Behind him, the polyphage roars to life. After it fully fuses with Luna, it will emerge from the cavern, and at that point, nothing would be able to stop it. Gabriel summons a near endless sea of Hedo creatures to prevent us from reaching the polyphage, then turns around, making his way out to the core area. We do our best fighting against the now active polyphage, and even manage to damage the core, but to our shock, it is beginning to repair itself. We realize that unlike the rail heterozygote, this is powered by Luna, so getting rid of the power source might weaken it enough to be completely destroyed all at once. And of course this means the possibility of neutralizing Luna. Lucia speaks up, asking Commandant if he will support her, a construct whose job is to fight for humanity and saving her sister, even if that sister is humanity's worst enemy. And as he said before, he will support her no matter what the choice, even now. So with our objective clearly laid in front of us, we move forward to take out the core. Back with Roland, he has managed to stall Alpha all this time, but it is clear who will end up winning this fight. And yet to Alpha's dismay, Roland is still set on making sure she doesn't get past him. Roland tells her that the Ascendants derive power from their pain, hatred, and obsession, informing her that both her and Luna's power have been steadily declining lately, meaning their faith in the network is faltering. To destroy humanity and make Luna the most powerful agent, Alpha, the source of any softness within Luna, must die. However, this isn't why Roland is standing in her way. In fact, he couldn't care less. Luna's original wish was a world where she could live peacefully with her sister, but as long as the network has a hold on her, it will never come true. And Grey Raven are the only ones capable of severing that hold, so he had to let them go. He fills Alpha in on the rest of the details, laying out everything he knows. He wasn't prepared for Gabriel to make his move this fast, and was unable to warn Luna in time. But the reason he stood in Alpha's way is that at her current level, she would have been devoured just like Luna. Gabriel then steps out of the shadows, his courteous tone barely managing to hide his menacing aura. Now having Alpha to handle Gabriel, Roland leaves for the core area. Alpha closes in, continuously slashing, attempting to expose a weak point, and Gabriel gets serious, pulling out his wings and taunting her, asking if she won't go save her sister. She decides to place the smallest bit of faith that Grey Raven will hold out until she can deal with Gabriel, as letting him go will make him an even bigger threat in the future. We fight our way to the polyphage, climbing up its arm as Lee and Liv provide long-range support. We fight through waves of Hedo creatures, taking out the polyphage's defenses on our way to the core. While all this is happening, Roland arrives at an underground space on the other side of the core area. He stares at the second Ash Hedo creature that serves as the second terminal. He assumes that destroying it here will reverberate back to the polyphage and the primary Hedo creature, hopefully offering Grey Raven some aid. He draws his weapon, and the creature responds, having sensed his hostility. Commandant and Lucia arrive at the top of the polyphage, looking at the energy core holding Luna. Lucia stares at her face, remembering the days before Luna became the Ascendant we know now. She raises her sword to strike the core when the Ash Hedo creature interferes, knocking her to the edge of the cage. Lucia attacks the creature, and it cancels her moves, attacking at the same angle and strength, mimicking her movements. She takes a new stance and attacks, but the creature proves quite the challenge, and with every wound she suffers, the virus festers, hindering her even more. It slowly adapts to her fighting style and pushes her back, but she doesn't hesitate, charging in again, and landing a blow that knocks it off the platform. The moment she turns back to the core, she is attacked by the polyphage's hunting claws. The Ash creature recovers, getting back up and attacks once more. She blocks the strike and throws a weapon case at Commandant, containing her old Lotus Berserker sword, and understanding what she means, Commandant rushes to the core. He cuts through the claws, stabbing the core as the polyphage roars out in pain. More claws emerge to stop him, and the creature condenses another ball of scarlet light. Lucia shields Commandant from the laser with her jetpack, and it begins disintegrating from the corrosion. The beam suddenly stops, and the creature falls to the ground limp as if it lost power, then suddenly begins screaming. The short pause was all that was needed, as Commandant drives the sword into the core with all his strength, cracking it open as he thrusts his hand towards Luna. Within the core, he can feel everything, the corruption of the polyphage, mixed with the pain and anger from Luna. They flood his mind, dragging his consciousness into the darkness. There he finds Luna, trapped within her own mind, and after convincing her he's not a projection of her mind, he explains what's happening on the outside until she finally remembers. Sensing her trying to escape, the darkness surrounding the two fights back, physically trying to prevent them from leaving. Commandant's consciousness is removed as all the polyphage's available power is spent trying to contain Luna. He cuts through layers of hunting claws until he can finally reach down and grab Luna's arm, pulling her up towards him. She tells him the only way to save Lucia and end this is to connect with her, to link with an agent.
あなたは姉さんの指揮官。姉さんを救える方法は一つだけ。私を受け入れて。
Having its power source removed, the ash creature lets off a horrible shriek before rushing to the core. Lucia gets in its path, stopping the attack but taking heavy damage in the process. But that gap allows Commandant to do the unthinkable and connect with an agent through the Ascension network. Luna asks why he would go through with something like this, and it's because he trusts how much she misses her sister. He can feel all the anger, regret, and hesitation in her mind, but shining through all of it is the untainted yearning for her sister. The virus begins to coalesce around her, repairing her frame and massively increasing her power to counter the effects of Commandant's mind beacon. She actively intercepts the virus trying to infect him through her, and he can tell she is in no condition to keep fighting. But Luna has decided to trust the possibility of a different path, paved by people like Commandant. But that's enough of the sappy thinking, as she shows Commandant what she's truly capable of.
Warning, social media success.
これがあなたの力。これが姉さんがずっと感じていた力。いいわ。あなたの信頼に応えてあげる。今こそ全てを終わらせる。
Roland watches the scene as he sits at the bottom of a crater, next to the lifeless body of the second Ash hetero creature. Battered, broken, and missing his left arm, Roland hopes that after all of this, Luna finally accepts what her true wish is, before promptly passing out. As Lucia and Commandant lay unconscious in the wreckage of the polyphage, a pair of invisible mermaid hands materialize and search Lucia, eventually pulling out a shining white cube. And as reluctant as she is to do it, she sets off Commandant's comm terminal, the noise stirring him awake. Some time later, Lucia also wakes up, her last memory being a blinding white light as the polyphage was destroyed. Now she lays on Commandant's back, being carried away while the polyphage sits under the collapsing cavern. The space around us rumbles and falls apart when Bridget drops a rescue line, having arrived with the support force. She evacuates us out, and we stare at the aftermath of our fight, having lost Huashu's key and any trace of Luna. In a dark underground building, Murray uses Huashu to get in contact with Chu, and she confirms that handing over Huashu was all part of her grand plan, allowing her to destroy Luna's faction from within. She had Huashu guiding her actions, causing her to unite the other human factions against her, and secretly provide assistance to Babylonia task forces, all without being seen. Oh my god, she's so cool. Murray suggests they work together to remove Luna from the equation, as she's lost her use to him and represents a major obstacle to Chu's Tabula Akasha. Murray requests to keep Washu's key, and part of its computing power to better counter Babylonia's Gestalt, and he will provide real-time information on Luna's movements and status, having placed someone to keep an eye on her in Washu's stead. Chu accepts the deal and gives Murray what he wants, bringing this war one step closer to its finale. After her talk with Murray, Chu speaks to one of her Kowloon crew heads. He asks if she still wants to continue with her plan of wiping out humanity, but after encountering Grey Raven, she has since decided to change her mind. She had decided to watch and see how things will play out from behind the scenes, and will adjust her plans for Tabula Akasha accordingly. However, one factor that remains consistent is that Luna must be eliminated for anyone to move forward. Well, if you made it this far, then congratulations. You have just finished Fake Ascension Part 2, and you are done with Chapter 13, so yay, clap it up. Man, I'm gonna be honest with you, this might just be my favorite video so far. Like, I really liked Lost Chapter and Chapter 12, but this, I forgot how much I enjoyed this chapter, and re-going through it, top tier. I really loved it. I also really hope that you guys enjoyed the video, because I put tons of effort. This might be my, like, this is definitely the second big jump in, like, the quality that I put out, at least as far as, like, my standards are concerned. Chapter 12 had a jump like that, and then this one had a jump. Like, I can definitely tell that this one is noticeably better than a couple of the other ones I put out. But what else? Oh, you know what? Elephant in the room here. Yep. That little first 2-second message. You heard me right. Let's try that again, because my first attempt got wiped when iMovie decided it wanted to jump off a bridge, and it took all of my work with it, so I had to re-edit the entire video. Luckily, it didn't erase my media library, so I still had all my videos and my assets, the pictures. It was just a matter of placing them back where I wanted them to be, so the editing process wasn't as grueling the second time as it was the first time, at least for the first few dozen minutes. Alright, so these side stories, right? I did stick them in, like, the middle of the chapter in some places where I kind of thought they might fit a little better, mainly because I really wanted those last few story nodes with the polyphage boss fight and the Luna stuff. I really wanted those to be the last. Yeah, I wanted those to be the last events, and I was fine with Engraver being last, even though it's a side story, because it canonically takes place after the fight, so I was fine with that. Especially Blasphemy, Gabriel's story. I couldn't find a good place to put it. If you don't think the place I put it was good, know that any place after that was horrible for it. So it might not have been a good place, but it was the best place. What else? Oh, so there are 2 hidden little stories at the end. They're not important. One of them is just, like, a construct who was, like, really infatuated with Lucia, Alpha, the first one, and she eventually disappeared and became an Ascendant, and he encountered her in the field as an Ascendant, and then he tried to become an Ascendant and then met Plume, and that was the construct that was saying Lucia's name in the middle of the chapter. And then the second story is just Roland when he first met Luna, so he just follows Luna around for a little bit and eventually says, you know, I will follow you until I find my own purpose. The only other thing that does is it tells us explicitly what his reply to Alpha was that she didn't like. You can see that. I'll put it here if I remember. And yeah, that's about it for that. What's next that I write down here? That's it. Okay. Oh, the characters. Oh my god. So let's get this out the way. Roland, clutch god, top tier. We all need a Roland in our lives. Deep undercover, all to save Luna and to get her what she wants. Everyone needs a Roland. Everyone needs a best friend Roland. On the opposite side, no one needs a best friend Gabriel. right? He showed up, betrayed everyone, sealed his boss in the polyphage. Big monster said, I'm gonna sacrifice all of my friends. He's actually insane. Level 10 crash out. And but you know what? In his side story, we did finally get to see what Chef Gabriel was cooking in the Red Tide. So it's a good thing. We at least got to see everything he's been messing with for the past like dozen chapters. Poor Selena. Selena gets absolutely no happiness ever. She deserves absolutely nothing, apparently. He stuck her in the Red Tide, and as far as we are aware right now, she is gone, and she is not coming back. So, rest in peace to all the Selena lovers out there. At least for now. Who's after that? We have, the Alpha and Lucia thing. So we finally have Lucia stepping up to Alpha, trying to, I am me, I'm not you. Even though I might have came from you originally, I'm my own person now. I love that. That was super great. We have Lucia confronting, everything Alpha did in her past, confronting her regrets and her sadnesses. And she's like, oh, you can't move on. You're stuck in the past, but I'll surpass you. Oh, that was so good. That was so good. And then there's Lamia. Oh, there's Lamia and Murray. They're both crazy. Apparently, Murray is absolutely insane. So now we know why Murray was so pressed in part 1 when he was getting grilled by Nicola about where he got his report from. Apparently, it's because he got his report from Lamia. Oh yeah, Hassan would not have been able to protect him from that one. You're dealing with Ascendants? Buddy, you're cooked. Oh man, I just realized Commandant is also cooked. He connecting with both an Ascendant and an Agent in the span of like 10 minutes. Oh, he is getting court-martialed for sure. That man is going to trial. That man is going to jail. He's going to prison. Man, let's see. Who else was in here? Let's see. Roland, Gabriel, Alpha, Luna, Chew. There we go. How did I forget Chew? I love Chew. Chew's great. Glad to see she's back and alive and doing stuff behind the scenes. So, just waiting for her to come back out from behind the scenes and back to the front. Trying to see her do stuff again. She's actually the Aizen of this entire game. She's like, oh yeah, by the way, me losing my entire city was all part of the plan, and it was to destroy you from the inside. She is actually thinking like 10 parallel universes ahead of everyone. Actually insane. Oh man. Let's see. Well, I'm just kind of standing here in silence, so I'm gonna end this now. Okay. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I put my whole foot into it twice, and I hope to see you all in the next video where we go back into the Extra Story Catacombs with Extra Story Chapter 4, Echo Aria.